Hi people, Moreno Regenberg here again. In this video, I'm going to be discussing the fact that spirits are also prone to squatting houses and any other item they can pretty much house themselves in, or any other item that they construe as real estate. So yeah, let's dive right in. Yeah, spirits also squat. No surprise there to anyone that's actually observant. That's how hauntings begin and whatnot. Not all hauntings, but some hauntings. Bottom line is that similar to people, most spirits, it doesn't matter whether they're human or non-human spirits, or whether they're the dead people, or any other spirit that was never a human being to begin with, like an elemental spirit or some kind of drifter spirit, some kind of naturistic nomadic spirit, you name it. Bottom line is that spirits are also greatly tempted to squat. And when I say squat, I mean if bluntly put, if you leave a house completely alone, if you leave a house alone for 50 years, let's just say you abandon a house, you leave the house completely abandoned. You bought a house in the Bahamas and you leave that house abandoned, and that house is in a rural location. Usually that's the case in a rural location. We're talking about a house outside the city and the country, surrounded by nature and whatnot, and the nearest house is, I think, like 100 meters away or 200 meters away. And you simply leave that house abandoned for 25 years or longer, even, you name it, to the point where animals even start to take up refuge in that house again. Don't be surprised if, aside from the animals and whatever vermin might have gone into the house, or whatever attempt nature might have made to take back the house, that you also have another unwanted visitor or an unwanted person in that house, or an unwanted being in the form of a spirit. And the story. The reason is that spirits, like I said, in that regard or an aspect, they're also like people. Okay, you have spirits that drift alongside the road and that simply they're like panhandlers, beggars. They have no place to stay, and they're simply looking for a place where they can just, sit down, take it easy, and call their own. And that doesn't have to be a house per se or anything that's man-made. It could also be a tree trunk of a really old tree. It could be a nest that's abandoned or not even abandoned, like a beehive or an ant hill or a termite hill or termite nest, whatever. Anything along those lines, okay? And on rare occasions, for example, a bed of water, like a body of water, like a pond or a small creek, you name it, a swamp. These are all examples, okay? And aside from that, most spirits also want peace. We're talking about specifically spirits that find themselves trapped in the lowest astral, realms, and they're basically stuck to the point where they regularly see human beings quite in close proximity to them. They'll more often than not retreat to solitary places where there are as little people as possible. The same way that I prefer to lead a semi-solitary life, in the sense that I don't want too many people near me unless I decide to join these people. But in general, I prefer to live briefly outside the city, to in a place where I have total and utter privacy, surrounded by nature and whatnot. Spirits have that same sentiment, okay? It's not a coincidence for me. That's why I'm an occultist. It's part of my whole occult makeup. It's part of my personality as an occultist. And yeah, spirits are also like that. That's why, referring to other videos that I've made, specifically in my story time list, if you venture into the jungle and you're someone that regularly does so, or you simply venture into areas where almost no one goes, or no one has ever been there, or no one has been there for years or even decades, then yeah, you're going to encounter, more often than not, if you're quote unquote lucky, so to speak, you're going to encounter spirits in a direct or indirect way, and you're going to notice it, as in, hey, you're going to notice weird, odd things happening, and so on and so forth. Plenty of people that do so can tell you stories. That's why people that venture into the forest and woods, people like lumberjacks, woodcutters, hunters, you name it. These kind of guys will openly tell you stories, okay, of things that they've seen and heard, unexplainable phenomena, and stuff like that. Um, so yeah, that's simply something to keep in mind. I know plenty of stories. I know, if, for example, I know a story of um, of a couple of real estate agents that had to view a house that was abandoned for I think 10 years or something in the city, okay, not in the center of town locally, but let's just say briefly in the northern part of town, outside the city, outside the center of town. And and long story short, the real estate agent that told the story specifically said that when he the house looked okay with the exception of one room, one bedroom. The second he went into that bedroom, and him and his colleague immediately got weird feelings, but not in a good way, feelings of anxiety and a feeling of dread coming over them. And there was also a geographical map, just a map of the globe, basically, not literally a globe, but let's just say a rectangular map of the world, geographically speaking, in that room. And his colleague wanted to take that map, but after some arguing, he managed to convince his colleague to leave that map be and to just leave it there. And the next day, his colleague told him that he had a really scary dream in which an old black man came to him or approached him and told him, the house that you entered with your colleague is my house. Don't go anywhere near that house. And everything you see in there, that map even, is my map and whatnot, etc., etc., etc. So yeah, this is a common, this is pretty much common knowledge amongst people, especially in areas that are labeled superstitious. Okay, not that that has anything to do with it, but just so to speak. And yeah, most people will tell you that. Okay, this is common knowledge, especially amongst people that have a bit more experience. But yeah, that is the case. The message, in any case, that I'm telling, the message that I'm bringing across, and what I'm trying to say, or not even trying, but what I'm saying is that spirits squat houses too. Okay, spirits squat. Period. As in, spirits also live in trees. Spirits do this. Spirits do that. You name it. Another example that I can give is of numerous stories, credible stories from reliable sources, of, for example, a group of lumberjacks being instructed to cut down an old tree, a tree that has existed for basically a century, during a deforestation project, and for whatever reason they simply could not cut down said tree. Weird misfortunes were to befall them, as in them cutting themselves or hacking in on themselves with their equipment instead of being able to hack said tree or tree root or said tree trunk, you name it. Even heavy equipment such as bulldozers and cranes and whatnot spontaneously malfunctioning whenever trying to even remotely touch said tree. All of this stuff is normal, okay? This is also something that you need to be wary of, and believe me, the guys that I mentioned before, people that occupy themselves with things like these, people that have professions people that have professions or careers where they come into contact with stuff like this, can tell you stories, okay, about the fact that they tried to cut down a tree, but they were warned by locals, as in, hey, a spirit lives in that tree, and that spirit is not going to stand by and watch you destroy or demolish its house. And yeah, pretty much the same things happened the way I just explained them. This is all nothing more than normal, nothing short of normal. Even locally, in my location, there is a tree outside the city, a huge tree. That tree must have existed, I think, over a century or something, at least over a century, or close to a century at least. And during road construction, they literally built around that tree, okay, to the point where there's a roundabout of, I think, a diameter of like 10, 20 meters, 25 meters, roughly estimated. And the tree in the middle, the tree is smack dab in the middle. And yeah, I took a picture, I took a selfie with that, at that tree. And yeah, it's exactly as expected. Because the second I saw that tree, I was like, yeah, I know that there has to be at least one spirit living in that tree, one huge forest spirit. That's why they built around that tree. Because aside from the rational explanation, which partially could be, if you wanted to argue something rational, or if you wanted to come up with a rational explanation, you'd say to yourself, hey, it's possible that it's cheaper construction wise to establish a road around the tree instead of straight through it and knocking that tree down. But nope. Okay, it's always cheaper and easier to go in a straight line. So these guys, government officials, when they were busy placing this road or paving this road, they literally paved the road around that tree. They literally took a detour that cost not only more resources but also more effort. So it makes no sense. You could also say, hey, they might have wanted to preserve it, but no, that also doesn't explain it. But because if they wanted to preserve it, why didn't they preserve any of the other trees? The other trees that are similar to that tree. But no, that specific tree sticks out immediately from the distance. And yeah, the second I approached that tree to take that selfie, I saw a huge forest spirit that looked a lot like that tree, and he is basically the head. And afterwards, I saw a group of like 10, 12 indigenous people, not Native American, Negroes, specifically Bush Negro. And yeah, they simply welcomed me and they knew what my intention was, and they simply told me to, okay, go ahead, take your selfie, enjoy yourself, thanks for the attention and whatnot, blah, blah, blah. And yeah, they're basically, I don't want to say subservient spirits, but I don't want to say subservient spirits, but let's just say that huge spirit is the head of the quote unquote household, and the others are members of said quote unquote household. So yeah, stuff like this is normal. If you're that interested in seeing the tree, then just look for the link in the description below and you'll see what I'm referring to. And last but not least, I also asked a friend of mine. We played a game where I showed him pictures, and you know who you are if you're watching this video. We played a game and I showed him pictures, to tell me, to see if he could see anything. I was like, what do you see in this picture? And he actually told me that he saw a face in that tree. And I was like, okay, yeah, sure. You're warm in any case. You're not exactly there, but you're warm. So yeah, that's simply something to keep in mind. Don't be surprised if it were to happen to you. If you go into an abandoned house and leave that, and better yet, if the house is being sold at a fraction of the price, you need to really be careful. If there's nothing explainable or rational that can be wrong with the house, we're talking about there's nothing about the house that you can explain straight away, then nothing rational, as in everything works fine, power, electricity, indoor plumbing, everything. You've tried to come up with some rational, plausible explanation and it simply doesn't cut it. Then yeah, don't be surprised, okay? Combined with the fact that you feel scared whenever you're in the house, the second you're in that house, you feel like something's telling you to leave. You get a feeling of uneasiness come over you, or a feeling of sorrow, or any other negative emotion comes over you. That's obviously not normal, and yeah, you better watch your back. That's all I'm saying, because 90% of cases, that house is going to be haunted. Yeah, house is really going to be haunted. Especially also if it's dark inside that house. You'll notice that, hey, it's dark inside the house. It might be light out, it's only 3 p.m. or 4 p.m. out, and even with the windows open, the house still has some kind of creepy vibe surrounding it, as in it feels dark. That's normal, okay, in an occult context. And yeah, I already explained everything regarding going out in nature. Don't be surprised, okay? It doesn't just account for large size, doesn't really matter, okay? I have heard plenty of credible stories of, for example, spirits that took up refuge under banana trees, believe it or not, actual banana trees, no joke. Or other similar examples or instances. All I'm saying is that, if you go outdoors or indoors, you name it, don't be surprised if you come across a situation like this, and because I just explained it, it's normal. Spirits also want a home the same way that you're not keen on living alongside the street, and even if you were to live alongside the street, you would want a roof over your head. a place that offers you shelter from exposure to the elements and the weather and whatnot. Okay, a place that you call your own. Spirits want that as well. We're not specifically referring to higher end spirits such as angels and whatnot, but they don't mind that as well, I'm being told. But usually these are drifter or nomadic spirits. Examples are dead people that can't find peace, that keep lingering around due to the fact that they can't let go of whatever holds them back, whatever negative emotion holds them back, or whatever grief or sorrow or any other negative emotion, such as anger or regret, holds them back or ties them down to the lowest astral plane, which is the closest to the physical realm. Let me see if there's anything else I forgot to mention. No, nothing else comes to mind. So yeah, that's stuff that you need to keep in mind. And of course, last but not least, aside from dead people, just miscellaneous naturistic spirits or forest spirits, or a spirit that can be linked to one of the four elements or even a fifth element. Spirit itself. There are 5 elements, by the way: earth, air, water, fire. Those are people that are most familiar with. Those are the ones that are people are most familiar with, but there is one which spans all 4, which is called the spirit. That's the 5th element. So yeah, that is all in essence. Before I close off, I'd like to say that arguably there's also a 6th element called matter, but I'm just going to disregard that for now because I'm not going to talk about the elemental planes. In any case, keep that in mind, okay? Spirits are also prone to squatting locations. That includes houses or real estate or property. Bye.